In order to understand this week's gospel, we have to take a look back at the gospel from last week to put them in context. You might remember in last week's gospel, Jesus asked his disciples the question, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they all gave various answers that they heard. Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. And then he asked, "Who do you say that I am?" And it was Simon Peter who said in reply, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus said, "Peter, you're right. That's exactly right. But flesh and blood has not revealed this to you." In other words, you haven't learned this on your own. My Father has given you that knowledge. And you are a rock, and on this rock I will build my church. And then we have today's gospel. And we don't know how much time, if any, lapsed between the two conversations, but Matthew puts them right together, back to back. Matthew puts them together. Jesus begins to tell them what it means that he is the Messiah, that he will suffer, that he will die, and he will be raised. And Peter begins to argue with him. And Jesus says to him, "Get behind me, Satan." He calls him the devil. "Get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle to me. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." The same Peter who just a moment ago, or just some time ago, was being praised, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah," is now called the devil. Father Richard Rohr is a Franciscan friar. He's the author of numerous books, an international speaker, and a daily blogger. And recently in his blog, he said that the world, and really each one of us, as we grow in our faith, is continually going through cycles. And these cycles have been given various names through the centuries, but they all follow the same pattern. And that pattern is this. We have order, and then we have some disorder, and then we have to reorder. Those cycles, I think, are very evident in our gospel reading today. This story occurs at the end of Jesus' public ministry. So the apostles have been with him for about 3 years. Simon Peter and the other apostles have been with Jesus for this length of time, and they're just now beginning to get it. They're beginning now to have a little bit of order. How do we know that? Because of last week's gospel. When Jesus said, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter has it figured out. He knows that he is the Messiah, that he is the Christ, he is the anointed one of God. So they understand a lot about who Jesus is, that he is the Messiah. And their lives have some kind of order because of that belief. They understand a lot, but they don't yet understand everything. They understand that he is the Messiah, and that gives them some sense of order in their lives, but they don't really understand what being the Messiah really means. And so Jesus tells them that being the Messiah, being the anointed one of God, will cost him his very life. And when they get to Jerusalem, Jesus will be handed over to the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and there he will die. And Simon Peter's response, and really he speaks for all the apostles, is the beginning of a period of disorder for them. Things are not as they thought they would be. For the next several weeks, maybe months, we don't know exactly when these events occur, their world will not make sense. Their lives will be disordered. They will see Jesus predict his death at least 2 more times. They will enter him triumphantly into Jerusalem with him on Palm Sunday, but then they'll witness the overturning of the money changers in the temple and people beginning to talk badly about Jesus. They'll have the Last Supper when the one that they have just called the Messiah, the Christ, will get down on his hands and knees and wash their feet. And they won't understand that. They will hear Jesus say, "One of you is going to betray me." They'll watch him get arrested. They'll run and they'll hide. Peter will deny him 3 times, and then they'll watch him die. And suddenly, all the order that they knew for those 3 years is gone. And everything now is disordered. When do you think they get the order back? Anyone want to take a guess? When do you think they get order back? Pentecost, exactly. They don't get it back at the resurrection. We might think that, but they don't get it back until the great feast of Pentecost. It won't come back until they receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. It is the Holy Spirit that will put order back into their lives. Now, I don't know about you, but I think our world is going through this cycle right now. We are in this period of disorder. 2020 started off as a pretty normal year. Life was going along just fine. But then we had the fires in Australia, and then we had the coronavirus. And then we had George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Jacob Blake. And we've seen peaceful protests, and we've seen violence and arson and looting. We are running through right now a very vicious election cycle, and we're in a time of real disorder. How do we, when individually our lives are in disorder, or how do we collectively, when our lives are in disorder, how do we move to a way of reorder? How do we reorder our lives? I believe the only way we do that is the same way the apostles did it. We do it through the power of the Holy Spirit. But we can't be passive in that. We can't simply say, well, I'm going to wait for the Holy Spirit to come. We need to be active. We need to pray for the Holy Spirit to come into our lives. We need to pray for the gifts of the Holy Spirit. You might remember them. These are the gifts of the Holy Spirit: wisdom, knowledge, understanding, counsel, fortitude, piety, wonder and awe in the presence of God. Wisdom, knowledge, understanding, counsel, fortitude, piety, wonder and awe in the presence of God. I don't know about you, but when I look at that list, I think, how much better would my life be if I had a full outpouring of those gifts in my life? And those gifts come from the Holy Spirit. And so we need to actively pray for the Holy Spirit. We need to actively pray for the Holy Spirit to come into our lives. I think we need to be slow to judge and quick to pray during this time, praying for that outpouring of the Holy Spirit in our lives. It is God's Spirit, and perhaps only God's Spirit, that can lead us from disorder to reorder. One place we can find that experience of the Holy Spirit is in our Alpha program. I want to encourage you once again to prayerfully consider attending either the Alpha Online that begins in just a few weeks, or later in person if we're able to do Alpha in person later this fall. I want to close with a brief 2-minute video that will tell you a little bit more about Alpha.
Every day we ask so many questions. What should I wear? What's the weather going to be like? How am I going to fit everything in? But then there are those bigger questions, like why am I here? Where am I heading? Is there more to life than this?
I had arrived at an answer to the most important issue that we humans ever deal with. Is there a God? And I had arrived there without ever really looking at the evidence. And I was supposed to be a scientist.
At 28, I had gotten many of the things that I thought I wanted. My girlfriend was on the cover of magazines, I had a Beamer, and I was so unhappy. It was a realization maybe that I would never find happiness where I was looking for it.
I think for so many years, I always just strived to be strong in myself. All I needed was me and my buddies and, we'd be like invincible. But the truth is, none of us are.
I found purpose, I found meaning, I found hope. God took something so broken and made it a beautiful art piece.
Alpha is a place where you can be yourself. You can say what you think and challenge everything. No question is too complex or too simple. And what your point of view is as important as anyone else's.
We are going on a journey together. an adventure to explore the questions of life, faith, and meaning.
September 10th, continuing on Thursday evenings from 7 to 8:30 p.m. through November 19th. So we invite you to visit the website for more information. We're hoping to run a live in-person alpha. We can't guarantee that right now, but we're hoping to do that in some fashion in October. I invite you to stand as we together profess our faith.